back. You're watching the special CNBC TV 18 Accenture discussion on what India needs to do on its journey to high performance. Mr. Purwa, let me come to you because the public sector is really going to continue to spend the large bucks as far as infrastructure, in this country is concerned, and that's how it's going to be. At this point in time, you're seeing a drive towards making the public sector a lot more efficient. You're seeing the disinvestment drive of, the companies from the public sector actually tapping the markets and so on and so forth. What will the role of the public sector in that sense really be from an infrastructure point of view going forward beyond just the usual pumping in money sort of role that we have seen so far?
If you see that public sector in the last, and particularly when you look at into the hydrocarbon sector as such, today you have the refining capacity in the country more than the refining needs of the country. So you are becoming a refining hub for the world. So in a way you are giving a value to the outside world by putting in the refining margins which are more competitive elsewhere. That means doing the project in India in a cost optimal way.
Okay.
Right? Similar stories is there into the petrochemical side, which is now coming up.
Yeah.
Like India today is
There's a lot of talk of petrochemical hubs and so on and so forth, which has gone through the previous government in its previous tenure.
Yes, but at the same time, there are today the polymers used into the industry, particularly in the infrastructure, is also increasing. Today, you are consuming of just about 5 kgs per capita is your consumption, which is the world average is in the range of 25 to 30, and that is all you are going to have that kind of a margin available with you.
Okay.
So that is where you see a lot of investment getting into the petrochemical.
Let me throw the last issue as far as infrastructure is concerned to you. In terms of prescription, we've already discussed what needs to be done or what has happened, and of course everybody around here is feeling a little more confident in terms of the steps that have been taken. But for us to be able to achieve the 9 to 10% growth, a lot more decisive action needs to take place on the infrastructure front. Give us a prescription of what needs to be done.
In India, about which I'm tremendously excited about what the potential holds, the thing we have to remember is that about the future, there is no entitlements or guarantees, only possibilities. And India's possibilities lie in the rural area where the real demographic center of gravity is. So bringing broadband and opening up those to the world of ideas, healthcare, education, I think is going to be fundamental. Those are my prescriptions.
All right, prescriptions as far as infrastructure is concerned. Kalpana, let me come to you in terms of the financial infrastructure, because again, as Mr. Gulabchand pointed out, steps have been taken just like they have on the infrastructure side, even to reform the financial sector. The Prime Minister just talked about legislative action to actually take forward the insurance bill, the pension reforms bill. There's a lot of talk about deepening the corporate bond market. For somebody who's been actually analyzing and been a part of the financial sector in India for over 2 decades now, how different is the mood and how decisive do you think the government is feeling at this point in time in actually taking those steps forward?
I think the point that I feel India needs to leverage much more, and this got nothing really to do with government enacting any new law or amending an existing law, it's more the policy framework, is to see how we can penetrate basic financial services into the hinterland of India. 70% of Indians live in rural India. If you look at the branch network that we currently have, probably just about 6% of villages are covered today with a brick and mortar branch presence. So Indians who are so good at technology, including current company here, have focused a lot on how we can leverage our technology capabilities in servicing the Western world.
Right.
I'm saying now let's look at how we can really leverage this and service the Indian financial sector in a way which I've used this phrase earlier, how can we really create a bank branch in the back pocket of every individual. And that I think is, yes, there is a policy change that's required to do that, but a lot more private initiative to drive that.
But in terms of corporate India, what would your single biggest demand be?
On corporate India, I think we need far more liberalization in terms of access to overseas market, saying only if you have a capital expenditure, and at one time, only if you have capital expenditure that where you're importing capital equipment, can you access overseas market? I think we've got to get away from that, because access to long-term debt from the international markets is what this country is going to need if we're going to realize our full dream of rolling out these billions of dollars of investment in infrastructure.
From an India Inc. point of view, how would you actually like to see the financial infrastructure or the financial fabric actually change at this point in time? What do you think are the big imperatives?
Well, I think we need some serious financial reform in this area. For example, there is no such thing as project financing in India. When you finance a project, you call it project financing, but it is always with recourse to the sponsors of that project, which is not the case anywhere else in the world. So if that is not to happen, it is necessary for us to be able to create securitization into a tangible asset.
Okay.
Now, which the Reserve Bank of India has not done. Second is, infrastructure needs a lot of long-term funding, and in terms of a debt market, India does not have a long-term debt market, no bond market. In fact, all finance is banking finance, and most of that finance, 70% of the nationalized banks' finance, it goes to the government. And we have RBI sitting here today with a large number of conflicting portfolios. It is the lender of last resort, it is the regulator of banks, it is also the merchant banker to the government of India, it is also the regulator of the bonds that it issues. It has a serious vested interest in doing very little. It is time we break up the RBI, create an office of debt management,
Yeah.
promote a debt market in the country,
Yeah.
promote a bond market, and let government compete with private sector for that bond market, and create a serious project financing. Now, these reforms are quite required.
Sort of big ticket reforms that are on the anvil, that's GST, and hopefully the implementation, if not by April, will happen by about September or October of 2010. And of course the direct tax code, which is currently being overhauled and under consultation. How confident and optimistic are you that both these will, in a sense, really align India to other developed markets?
Well, first of all, the GST's greatest contribution will be to make India a common market. Europe is a common market, India is not, and I think this is one of the biggest contributions of GST. Besides, there would be other benefits that would flow, which have been discussed very often. As far as the new tax code is concerned, it's a mixed bag. On one side, it is a simple code without all the whereases and provisions and the explanations differing from the body of the section. But it still carries a number of draconian measures, and a lot of draconian measures of the original tax code are continued. And I think we need a serious debate on this. But I think it's a step in the right direction to improve the tax management of the country.
On that note, time for us to take a break on the special show, but we'll be back after this quick commercial break.